today the topics that we're going to cover are a few. Mind-body medicine, stress management, psychological support, spirituality, using the mind as a tool to promote healing, listening to the heart, intuition, and rest. We're going to go through some listening skills and a little listening skill exercise. Um, Exploring the potential for death to be a wise advisor in living a quality life. I'll share about Ram Dass and other mentors in my life, with an overall message of bringing loving awareness to uncertainty when it's present in our lives. So my feeling on Ram Dass's teachings, and I'm feeling most people here are familiar with Ram Dass to some degree, and his original message came through loud and clear: be here now, be here now. But if you look at his last years in Maui, there was another message that kind of came through, and that was with loving awareness. And that's really touched me because in just be here now, it can be kind of like distant or, other personality characteristics can be there with the witness, a judging or comparing or something like that. But the idea of be here now with loving awareness really kind of fills it out and gives us a direction to go in every present moment. Ram Dass's teacher, Neem Karoli Baba, here on the right, with Siddhi Ma and Jivanti Ma, and I'm not sure who this woman is, but very close devotees of Maharaji. And Ram Dass at one point, when he was leaving India for the first time, was really struggling with what am I going to do with all my imperfections? Or, I'm going back to America. How can I be a good advocate for you, when I'm feeling, everything that's wrong with me? And he went to Maharaji and asked what he should do. How should he come back to America? And the message that Maharaji gave him was love everyone, serve everyone, and remember God. And so I'm thinking, in times of my life or, times in our lives when we're working with that kind of feeling of inadequacy or, not good enough or, any of these kind of qualities, that love, serve, remember message can really be speaking right to us in that moment. I was able to meet up with Ram Dass when I was fairly young. Actually, met him at his father's house when I was 22, and he invited later on. He invited me to be in a small class in Cambridge, and a picture from there. And I'm in the kind of upper left-hand corner there when I still had hair, and just it was a tremendous opportunity. Once a month we met, and it lasted for about a year. And one of the challenges was he didn't want the group to get so big. There was no charge to it. So he said that it had to be in secret and we couldn't tell people about it. So it was really strange. The biggest, most exciting thing happening in my life, going to a small class in Cambridge and New York City with Ram Dass, but I couldn't tell anybody about it. So I guess I'm making up for lost time and sharing about it now. Another picture of that class, this appeared on the internet right after Ram Dass left his body. And when I saw it and zoomed in, I'm actually raising my hand here on the right-hand side, getting ready to ask Ram Dass a question. And I'm thinking I'll share one question that I did ask him. Is I was invited to go to nursing school. I was a nursing assistant and I had dropped out of college. I really didn't have a great time in school. And I was invited to be in this nursing program. But I didn't want to go to school, so I talked to Ram Dass and I asked him, should I go back into the school? And he said, yes. And I go, well, I don't really want to go back. I'm not sure. Why? So I asked him why, and his answer to me was, you'll make more money. Now, I could have predicted 100 different answers that he might give me about why go back to school, but to make more money from this spiritual teacher, wouldn't have been one of the top 100. But I could say now he was right. I made more money, but also I was able to see over 40,000 patients in the hospital, teaching meditation and stress management, and really gave me a solid life. Well, when the class ended with Ram Dass, I was trying to figure out how can I stay close to him. And one of the ways, there was a prison ashram project where in the 60s and early 70s, a lot of young people might have been, arrested for marijuana, 2 joints, you get 10 years in jail. And it was just a horrible situation. And, young people, they'd be in jail and they'd write Ram Dass a letter, and, he'd write back and send them, reading materials and stuff like that. But he decided to create a prison, he called a prison ashram experience, prison ashram project, so that people could use their time in jail as to grow spiritually. And so as I was leading that group, I would go around to different spiritual groups and I would invite people to be pen pals in our program, and they would send me a letter and then I would match them up with a prisoner and stuff like that. And so as we were getting off to our start, I asked Ram Dass if he would write us a little note. And I think it fits in with this idea of navigating uncertainty. I'll read it for everyone. On the journey of births and rebirths, each of us sooner or later must reach toward the light. At that moment, it matters not whether your body be well or ill, free or in bondage. What matters is the purity of heart with which you seek transformation of who you were into what you can become. To all of you who participate in the postal satsang, I send my honor. For by your act of participation, you are reaching toward light in this very birth. Somewhere in each of us is a place of clarity, spaciousness, peace, and love. In that place we are together and have never been apart. May blessings surround you and your sadhana. Love, Ram Dass. And I feel, y'all come in for a class like this on a Saturday afternoon. You're demonstrating that same reaching toward the light. And, I said my honoring, and Sita Ram Dass says his honoring, and we know Ram Dass is sending his honoring as well. So another way that I stayed in touch with him, this is a poster back in 1981 where I arranged 3 talks for him in Boston. And, I love to look back at the price here, $15 for 3 evenings with Ram Dass at the Arlington Street Church. So just a few key Ram Dass sayings that I feel really fit with our topic today. The idea that we're souls and not our roles in life. And when we have that uncertainty, it's like we almost cling harder to the roles. But the truth is, we are our souls on this journey. And I think Ram Dass with that letter and with this is acknowledging that for us, souls not roles. My role in this particular picture, we were in India together in 2004, and for a while I was Ram Dass's night nurse. As you can imagine, the rooms in India are not very handicap accessible, and so it was a great honor to be able to be helpful, in that for him. Another key point of Ram Dass's is the only work we have to do is on ourselves. And there is, so much, suffering in the world, and so much, um, suffering within ourselves, that sometimes, we get this all mixed up. But the idea, as we work on ourselves, we're doing the most for someone else. So, it sounds, I know it could sound like a little selfish, but that idea of like when we're able to like maybe let go of some fear, let go of some anger, bring in some forgiveness, study, go into a little more depth of wisdom, that work we're doing benefits ourselves, but it really benefits everyone that we become in touch with. In this, being a nurse and involved in a lot of psychological therapies and studying all my life, I could never understand what is the ego. The ego, the invisible ego, you can't see, you can't touch. What is it? And the ego is so tricky, it wants to confuse ourselves. And then one day Ram Dass gave this little teaching: the ego is rarely content. And that really helped me because I with my meditation practice, I know what contentment is. And so the idea that when I'm not content, ego can be present. And that has just really, really helped me. So that idea, the ego is rarely content. When I worked at Duke, I was, back in 1994, we were bringing mind body medicine, alternative therapy, spirituality right into the main health system. And here's just a slide just giving examples of classes I was doing, and also that other faculty were doing. Another mentor in my life, I actually met Elizabeth Kubler-Ross at a Ram Dass retreat. And it was a 7-day retreat. We were in silence, but he decided to have a talk day, I think, on our 5th out of 7 days. And I knew Kubler-Ross was there, and so I went up and talked to her. I said, "Dr. Kubler-Ross," and she gets right in my face. "Call me Elizabeth." I goes, okay, Elizabeth, what do you think of this yoga and Eastern spirituality, meditation, Ram Dass is talking about? And what she said to me was that in the Bible, reincarnation was in there, but they took it out at the Council of Constantinople in 563. And so we started having this just wonderful talk about reincarnation, and the reality of and practicality of spirituality. And so she invited me at that point to come and do a 5-day retreat with her, where she was the only teacher. And we had like the first day that she started off asking people why they came, and there was 40 people present. And, a couple people said, "Well, I'm here, I'm a minister in a church, and my church is, the members are getting older, and I want to learn how to deal with death better." And she goes, "Okay." Someone else says, "Well, I'm a nurse in the hospital, and we got dying patients, and I want to become a better nurse." And she goes, "Okay." And then all of a sudden, the lady stood up and she said, "My husband is got cancer, and he's dying. And I'm so hurt, frustrated, and he's in a 4-bedroom, and we can't talk together." And Elizabeth held up her hand. She goes, "Whoa, this is wonderful. You are all here for yourselves. You are all here to work on your own grief, your own losses, your own unfinished business." And so she was giving us this incredible permission, and that brave, person who stood up and opened it up. She goes, "I usually call the first day of my retreat the bullshit day. Everybody tells me the bullshit reasons why they're here. You all are here for you." And, that just mirrors back so much to Ram Dass. The only work we have to do is on ourselves. So, in navigating uncertainty, what I'd like to encourage people first is to recognize this state when we're in it. Again, the mind is going to want to take off, or the feelings of I need to fix it, or all this kind of mental agitation is going to, but that ends up making things worse. So the idea, when I'm in not knowing, when I'm in uncertainty, okay, here it is. And I know one pressure a lot of people have is we need to have all the answers. For some of us, we need to have the answers yesterday. But right now, I am saying we don't have to have all the answers. In fact, science doesn't have all the answers to important questions in life. As you can see from this list, science doesn't have the answers. Why should we then expect ourselves to? So it is okay to not know. It is okay to be in that limbo. I'm not saying pleasant and I'm not saying comfortable. Okay. So when one enters or realizes they're in the not knowing, what to do next? And so one thing could be problem solving. The American Cancer Society says knowledge is power. So there could be, seeking a knowledge, asking questions, problem solving, the internet, good. When you feel you've done what you can, for example, I go into a patient's room, they had a bone marrow biopsy on a Thursday. I'm seeing them on Friday, and they're going to get the results on Monday. So as you can see, in that limbo, there's a great opportunity for suffering that happens. No sleep, but then by the time Monday comes, the person is totally worn out. So, in the sense of when you've hit that place that you've done the problem solving, you've gotten help, and you're still not knowing, recognize the not knowing. Watch out for the thoughts. I found out that thoughts can magnify emotions. If I'm afraid or anxious, and then I start getting the what if thoughts coming in, that's going to magnify the feelings and create more suffering for myself. So again, this can be one of the benefits of meditation, where we kind of learn about thoughts and learn that I don't have to go on every trip that every thought brings to me. The idea that I can let go and then move back into the being here now with loving awareness. Jack Kornfield, a well-known Buddhist meditation teacher, I went to the 40th anniversary of their founding, Jack Joseph Sharon Goldsberg's founding of the Insight Meditation Society. And as I was there, he said, the person who has the greatest understanding of awareness today, and my ears perked up, who is Jack Kornfield going to say has the greatest understanding? And what he said was Ram Dass and the loving awareness in the present moment. The idea that he has combined awareness with metta, loving kindness, together in the present moment. So that sense of moving in that directions. Now, with mindfulness practice, one of the skills we learn is how to peel back emotions. For example, some people do not like uncertainty. I mean, they've got an aversion towards it. They don't want it, they don't like it, but that is a layer on top of the uncertainty. So the idea, I start peeling away. I don't like it. I'm scared. angry, peeling away those emotions, not having to go on every thought about them, but just peeling them away and just getting more and more to that simple, right now I'm not knowing. Right now I'm not knowing. And with that, we want to be perfect. We want to have all the answers. I just add this line at the bottom: don't be hard on yourselves. You know, I call waiting and not knowing the biggest stress of all. I've seen over 40,000 people in the hospital dealing with the whole range of illnesses, health problems, tragedies, and it's the not knowing that's the biggest stress. So when we're not knowing that, let it be a signal. It's time to be gentle with myself, time to cut myself breaks, time not to go on every negative head trip about myself. So as I gave that example of that person who got the biopsy on Thursday, I'm seeing them on Friday. Where I'm coming from is to bring more mind body homeostasis, balance, which can promote healing during uncertainty. So there's ways that we can do that. Mind body self relaxation skills, cognitive behavioral techniques. Here is my toughest way: social support and allowing people to help us. As I say, waiting and not knowing is the biggest stress. The toughest stress management is letting people help us. I think it's easier to give to others, harder to let people give to us. Harder to let people give to us and receive. So during uncertainty, that could be a very, very skillful, not easy, but very skillful social support, allowing people to help us. Also, belief in conscious expectation brings the mind and spirit into helping the body return more to that homeostasis. So in terms of psychological support, I've got a real nice cadre of ways that we can do this. Now, it's not that we have to do all of them. It could be finding the one or two or three ways that appeal to you. I'm going to say work with your strengths in terms of a positive psychology. Don't feel like, well, now I have to learn all these other skills too. Go with ways that have worked with you in the past and then bring them to the present. So I want to say a little bit about stress management, because typically when I say the word stress, what comes into people's minds is like problems, worries, tension, pressure. But what we've discovered in science, and I'm saying research going back to the 40s and 50s, is that stress simply comes from change. If you have changes in your life, even good changes, it can cause stress. Christmas, the holidays, a wedding, having a child or a grandchild, moving, starting a new job. Even some people, like coming out of the pandemic, is good. All of these are good, but the changes still bring us some stress. Now, another important part of this stress formula is the realization some people thrive on stress. And, I've had people say, oh, adrenaline junkies, and that's not what I'm talking about. Some people thrive on stress. Firefighters, military, police officers, ambulance drivers, individuals that can have high stress every day and love it. It's what they do. Where you've got another individual who has one little change and they're going all to pieces. that individual makeup. And so another invitation with this class is that self introspection. What is your relationship to stress and change? Is it something you hate? Is it something you thrive on? Just kind of looking inside. Um, but whether you love it or hate it, stress is physical, sending powerful chemicals into the body that affect all the body systems. And back at that Duke slide I had, one of the doctors presenting, he presented that stress affects psychology, the neurosystem, the immune system, the endocrine system. So it really can affect the whole body. And in one sense, whether you love stress or hate it, it can cause wear and tear on a person. In fact, sometimes I feel a person's like a cup of water. When the cup gets filled with stress, you add one more thing and it's overflowing. Whereas, you don't add that one thing, it doesn't, there's no problem going on. But sometimes that one thing, it causes it to overflow, and then we have the reaction. It could be, again, physical or emotional. Stress, what I've learned is that stress tends to affect a person in their vulnerable area. So I worked a lot with chronic pain. People who have pain every day, they're under a lot of stress, likely to be hurting more. Someone else, they don't have any pain, but they've got blood pressure. Under a lot of stress, blood pressure up. So that sense that stress can affect us individually. And, physical responses, mental responses, emotional responses, and even spiritual responses, loss of faith, loss of hope, loss of meaning, purpose in life. Whether a person believes in God or any spiritual faith in particular, I feel that those could be spiritual responses to stress. Stress, as we know, can affect the family. It can affect our work, hobbies, creative activities. So in this kind of world of stress management, I've come up with a definition for the word healing. And that is simply improving quality of life and or improving physical functioning. At any stage of life, healing, here I say valuable, I'll also say possible. Any stage of life. And even at the end of life, I was featured in this book, The Bright Hour. I met with this lady one time in the hospital, and I didn't know she was a writer for the New York Times, and she was writing a book on her journey with cancer. She was 38, had a couple kids, and was coming to Duke for breast cancer. And it just was a real fast type, and had chemo and wasn't working. And so the nurses asked me to go see this lady, and I just went in to see her as a regular session. And and that was it basically. And then a year later, I got a text from a friend in DC. She said, "John, you're in this New York Times bestseller." And I said, "No, I'm not." And she said, "Well, the author called, she was at Duke, and she called you Nurse John." I goes, "Well, maybe." And so she kind of told me the story and remembered. And I taught this lady the technique that I'm going to share with you all. And in the book, she talks about meeting me, and then in the next chapter, she didn't tell me, but she had chronic panic attacks. She had this lifelong pattern of having this nightmare that she was swallowing batteries, and then she'd wake up and was gagging, couldn't breathe for like 45 minutes or an hour afterwards. And then in the book, she shared that she remembered what Nurse John taught her, and she was able to beat the panic attack. And then, again, I didn't know this, but she was like related to Ralph Waldo Emerson, one of the transcendentalists from Boston, Massachusetts area, and she had access to his poems and diary, and he wrote this poem called The Bright Hour, which is the idea that sometimes, with suffering there could be a great deal of suffering, but then it opens up and the sun comes through. And so she kind of had this transcendental experience through this technique and was able to beat lifelong panic attacks in her last year of life. So the idea that there can be healing. So in terms of chronic health problems, let me lay down these three goals with healing. One is to lower the overall level of symptoms. The idea, you have a 7 out of 10 pain every day. If you can knock it down to 4 out of 10, your life is better. The idea, if you have a bad flare up, shorten the duration of it. That woman with her, panic attacks that last an hour, well, if she could cut it to 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 1 minute, her life is better. And cut down the number of bad pain flare-ups or bad symptoms. If you have it, every week, if you can cut it down to once a month, your life is better. So the idea of bringing in these more reasonable goals to deal with chronic or long-term health problems really can help with the coping. So just a few cognitive behavioral approaches: mind, body, working with thoughts to change moods. The idea of the, judging. In the hospital, I would notice a lot of men with health problems beat themselves up terribly for not being able to, be the breadwinner for their family, or not, being able to participate with their kids the way they want to. And, the idea of working with those thoughts, not letting the negative thoughts run wild, or cutting down on the duration that those negative thoughts go. And working with those thoughts, again, could be a way to help with our mood. Pacing activity and rest for pain and fatigue management. People get into this cycle of, they're hurting or they're not feeling good. They're down in bed, hating it. They feel better one day. They want to go, do, push. But then what happens? Boom. Symptoms flare up. You're down again, hating it, frustrated. And then you're back in that cycle of overdoing it and then paying for it. So the idea, pacing activity and rest. Rest before you get too tired. Rest before the pain or the symptoms knock you down. Very, very skillful. Simple assertive communication. I'm going to give a couple tips on saying no and not feeling guilty. Stress management education, like we're doing. Duke Hospital did this program for the staffs in stress management, where they asked people to identify every day before bed 3 good things that happened that day. 3 good things. And so the idea, you get used to that practice. Then when you're having a difficult time in life or things aren't going good, you've got that tool of 3 good things. Okay, what happened? And you're used to kind of maybe shifting the focus. So here I'm sharing some communication rights that we all have, and the right to say no and not feel guilty when no is the truth. I'm going to go into a little depth with that. Now, I'm not talking about your boss tells you to do something and you say no, because that might not be too skillful for your job longevity. But the idea, I've worked all week at Duke and the church is calling me for the bake sale and I don't want to bake for the bake sale, that might be a time to bring this in. So, two skills. One is broken record, calmly repeating no or no thank you again and again, simply avoiding sidetracking questions. Well, why don't you want to do that? No, I really don't want to do it. Just staying with the no, not having to go off on every direction. Because sometimes people manipulate us that way, get us feeling guilty, and we give up on that saying no. So broken record is one approach. Another, to go back to the church calling me for the bake sale. I don't want to bake for the bake sale, but what can happen? John, can you bake for the bake sale this Friday? No, I don't want to. Well, John, everybody loves your chocolate cake. It's so good. How about making one for us? No, I don't want to. John, you're such a nice guy. I know you can help. Well, I don't know. And John, I don't know what I'm going to do. I really need your. Well, okay, I'll bake for the. And then there goes my Friday night. There goes, whereas sensitive assertion. Listen to what the person says. Let them know you hear it, but stay with the no. For example, John, can you bake for the bake sale? No, I don't want to. Well, John, you make the best chocolate cake. Everyone loves it. I could say, I know I make the best chocolate cake, but I don't want to bake for the bake sale. Well, John, you're such a nice guy. I know you can help. I know I'm a nice guy, but I don't want to bake for the bake sale. John, what am I going to do? I'm confused. I'm not sure what you're going to do, but I don't want to bake for the bake sale. So bringing in the broken records, calmly repeating the no, but demonstrate your listening too. Let them know you hear it. Stay with the no. So a lot of other good ideas here. Communication skills. Stephen Levine, incredible teacher about this whole subject of death, dying, and navigating uncertainty. I did a Zen sesshin once and wrote him a poem about the Jiki Jitsu, the person with the stick walking around, how I imaged them like death. And so I was, sharing in this poem. And then he wrote me back a little postcard. And I've got it on the screen here for you all too. Thank you for the poem. Yet still you think you will die. You only think you're going to die because you believe you were born. Who is that? You are the deathless. The body sails in the ocean of form. Go beyond the forms to that which simply is as it is, beginningless, endless. Love is the bridge. Love is the bridge. And when Stephen left his body, I heard about it. I kept on hearing in his voice, deathless, deathless, deathless. So we're our souls, we're not our roles in life. This body is going to pass, but we're our souls. So I know there's this whole kind of feeling out there. You talk about death, you're going to make it happen sooner. But if life worked that way, my friends, we could talk about money and be rich. It's not going to put a penny in our pockets. In fact, with the latest research on hospice, people with the same illness, some going into hospice, some going into usual care, the ones in hospice live longer than the ones in usual care. So that idea, talking can be, a way to get better, talking about death, talking about our response to loss, talking about grief, can actually help us live longer. So I've come up with this, everybody comes up with their own way of handling life and death. And, just working in the hospital, I have seen so many people, in their teens or younger die, in their 20s, in their 30s, 40s, 50s. that I don't have in me death equals old age. Death is a reality. And so the way that I've chosen to live life, kind of bringing that kind of death awareness, is to try to live three ways simultaneously. I could die or be quadriplegic tomorrow. I've seen it where people, I've been in rooms with terminally ill people and a couple others, and someone else in the room died before the terminally ill person died. The idea, we don't know that. We could die. So if that's a truth, we could die or quadriplegic tomorrow. Is there any I love yous I want to say? Are there any I'm sorry's I want to say? Is there any unfinished business in life that I want to take care of? Do I want to write my will? These are all kind of valuable ways that can help with this. Another way that I'm, again, trying to live simultaneously is some illness or something takes us out in 2 to 3 years. And we've all had this experience of COVID. I looked yesterday, and we're almost to 1 million deaths due to COVID. And you could look back at that 1 million people, how many of them thought that, in this period of time, they would be dead. But that is a reality. So, there is kind of a quality of life issue. And, sometimes we make decisions, well, if I'm only going to live a few years, I really want to do this. I really, want to make that trip to Hawaii, or I really want to, make this pilgrimage, or I really want to get into some therapy, just, whatever. Just the idea of taking, the possibility that I might not live a long time to heart as a possible reality. The third way is that, I'm going to live a long time, possibly, so I don't want to blow the retirement account. The idea that, I'm going to have to take care of myself now and in the future. So, I can't just say, if I'm only going to live, another week, we're going to have a hell of a party this weekend, and I'm going to fly some of you out to join me for that party. But I don't know, I might live longer than that, so I don't want to blow my retirement account. So, just in general, around this subject of death, these are examples of things that we can do ourselves to investigate death. Also, it could be offerings to other people. How can we help? And so I've got that there. Hope to me is a medicine. Sometimes hope needs to shift. Viktor Frankl, was a psychiatrist, Jewish psychiatrist during World War II in one of the Nazi concentration camps, and he said that people who kept hope tended to be the survivors, and those that lost hope tended to be the ones that died. And I think the key is that hope is real, but sometimes it needs to shift. I had a 22-year-old cancer patient who, a young man going home to die, and the chemo wasn't working, and he was going home to his family, and he just did this incredible shift. Instead of hoping to live a long life, he hoped for pain management. He hoped not to be a burden for his family. He hoped to have some heart-to-heart talks with some of his friends. And his family, just was welcoming him with open arms. He wasn't going to be a burden, but the idea that his hopes at that point became more reasonable and was able to actualize them. So, in the sense of listening, it's a challenge, and Sita Ramdas and I have really, felt this and worked on it. And he made a nice little video for me, and I'd like to share it with y'all. Volume okay?
Listening without taking on the pain. And I left the hospital about 6 months ago, and I did stress management sessions with people in their hospital rooms. So, for example, someone might have got shot, having a real hard time dealing with this pain, and yeah, I go and see this person, or someone who's going to have their leg amputated soon. I would see this person, or this child, 12 years old, with a brain tumor, or a woman who's had a heart attack and never going to be able to work again. And for your listeners, there might be like a feeling of pain coming up as I describe these different situations. And I'm seeing 8 to 10 people a day, and if I took on the pain of each of those patients' situations with my, caring heart, I wouldn't be able to go to work the next day. So over time, and I had a real graceful experience that I'd like to share about how I learned, the value of listening, caring presence without having to hurt and take on pain by doing that. And the way I learned that is, and I've been doing this work for a while, so, but I brought Stephen Levine to a lecture, a workshop, weekend workshop, and he flew into town. I picked him up at the airport, and I said, Stephen, where's Andrea, your wife? I had put up posters from, Atlanta to DC, Stephen and Andrea Levine, and so to not see her, I was disappointed at least. But he said, well, she just found out she's got lupus and wasn't able to make it. And when he said that, my face took on this reflection of my feeling of hurt. I know Andrea, we're friends. She's had cancer twice and beat it. Now she has lupus. And being a nurse, I know exactly what that means for her future, or could mean. And so my face was full of pain, and he gets real close to me and he says, wrong answer. It's new moment. Lupus. Cancer. And as he looked into my eyes, my meditation background, I noticed I was feeling pain. And I asked myself the question, is my pain helping Andrea, his wife, at all in New Mexico? And I'm in Atlanta. And I said, no. And I thought, no, I'm not helping her. I'm hurting and I'm not helping her. Am I helping Stephen, her husband, who's, my friend, and, sharing what's going on? No. He's having to comfort me. He's having to teach me. It's like, and then my mind started racing, compassion versus pity. Pity, that state of, oh, that's terrible. Thank God it's not me. Versus compassion, which to me is touching pain with love. Love, remember, it's not coercive. It's not trying to change. It's a being, awareness, touching that pain with love. And so that moment really turned me in that direction of, to hurt doesn't, when I listen, doesn't help me. It doesn't help the other person. But to shift more into love, caring, Ram Dass would call it loving awareness, is good for me and my soul, and it's good for the other person because they've got what you just described, someone who's really listening, present, caring, you know, doesn't have to fix it, can just be with it. But, problem solving can take place, grief work, there's all kinds of healing, I'll use the word magic, that can happen with just through listening, and caring at the same time.
So, gonna do a little shift here from what originally I thought. Um, in terms of listening skills, I was describing there the kind of PhD of listening skills, listening without taking on the pain. But in our world, so often someone is talking and the other person's thinking about what they're gonna say, and it's like we miss a lot where there's some skills that could be used, simple skills, um, and so I list a few here. The other of open-ended questions. If you ask a question that just has a yes or no answer, that's all the information you're going to get. If I was a nurse in the hospital, I asked somebody, "Did you sleep last night?" They say yes or no, that's all. Or open-ended question would be like, "Tell me how you slept last night." The idea of giving giving the person a chance to share more information than a simple yes or no. Um, Nonverbal communication. It's said that 50% of our communication is nonverbal. So it could be eye contact, it could be nodding, it could be a smile, it could be, our body position. We're sitting like this all tense versus, I'm sitting here open. I'm leaning in. So again, simple listening skills, encouraging a person to go deeper or share more. um, Summarizing or restating. I had many times in the hospital where a person would tell me this long, kind of complicated story, and so I would summarize. And here's a key with summarizing. Sometimes I get something wrong, and they would correct me. No, I didn't mean that. I meant this. And that is wonderful. It is not any kind of message that you're not listening well. It's just you didn't quite understand it, and now the person gets to explain it, and so now you do understand it. So that idea of summarizing, restating, reflective listening could be using the same words the person said and demonstrates your hearing. Or what I like to do is maybe change the words around, or put my own words in it, and they oh yeah, he understands, or no, I didn't mean that. And again, I can take that information and go deeper. Sometimes people will tell you all kinds of stuff, and for me, it's like I'd have trouble understanding where in time this was. And so I could say, "Oh, well, did this happen then and then that?" Or, again, just trying to put events in time, the person can clarify for you if you're right or wrong. Another listening skill, silence. Silence. And in the hospital, sometimes, a person could be weak or confused, or and just sitting there, just making the eye contact, leaning in, having it be okay to be silent inside yourself gives that person maybe a chance to think deeper about things and maybe come up with a deeper insight, awareness, or memory that they could share with you. So all these kind of ways of listening, very, very valuable. But um, so, in terms of revitalizing the caregiver, um, the idea that I've already shared, hard to say no and not feel guilty, easier to help others, harder to let others help us. I had a real powerful teaching with this in the hospital. A woman with cancer that had metastasized to her spine, she went paralyzed and was having a lot of pain. And the doctors came in on morning rounds, and she said to them, "I want Dr. Gavorkian, the suicide doctor." And at first they laughed, but then she said it again, "I want Dr. Gavorkian." And so it was kind of a hush. and they didn't know what to say or do, and they stepped outside of the room. And as well as getting a psych consult for depression, the discharge planner suggested that I see her. So the lady didn't get Dr. Kevorkian, she got Jon Seskevich. And so as I went in there, what was the first thing she said to me? I don't have any stress. I said, oh, wonderful. It's nice to meet so. But then I shared a little more about my viewpoint about stress coming from change. And she got fairly quickly that she had a hell of a lot of change going on. And so she in our, I want to make a long story short, in our discussion, she shared about ways that she had kind of worked on lowering stress herself. And one of them was she had gone to Central America, and like Habitat for Humanity, only they build churches for people. And I said, well, how'd that make you feel? She goes, oh, I felt wonderful. And the people had a fiesta for us afterwards, and it made us feel so good. And then I said to her, if you can go home now and let your family give to you, how will that make your family feel? And she said, good. I said, yes, good. So the idea that, letting people help us can make them feel good. And so I could share, a couple days later, that lady went home with her family with a lot of love and support. So this, letting people help. So I want to share about this work with mantra and mind body techniques. And in 1995, the NIH Office of Technology Assessment identified relaxation techniques as beneficial in the treatment of chronic pain, person hurting 6 months or more, and insomnia, which isn't like 1 or 2 nights, it's a solid problem. Relaxation back in 1995, the science was there. So we can work skillfully with thoughts. Thoughts can add to our stress. Thoughts such as worry, what if, and I'll let you add on what comes after the what if, because there can be a lot of what ifs. Rumination, going over things that happened in the past again and again. Judging, self-criticism. It said we can be meaner to ourselves with our thoughts than we would ever be out loud to another person. So this idea, what are a skillful way to work with thoughts? You hear relax, don't worry, but how does one actually do that? Well, my feeling and my experience and my research, we got a $3 million a year for 3-year grant to study mantra meditation, where people would choose their own mantra for high blood pressure and stress, and very positive outcomes, both with people in the hospital waiting for angioplasties, heart procedures, as well as people who came to outpatient class. So it was slow Christmas in 1977 at the hospital, and they wanted to see what happens in with a machine, an electroencephalogram, when I did the meditation. And so in A, you've got these leads all over my head, and it's very busy. Well, the beginning is normal day to day, but then I start this idea of soft belly breathing, not breathing deep or hard, but just aiming the breath to the belly. So there's a gentle rise with the breathing in, gentle fall with the breathing out. In the hospital, I encourage people to put their hands on their belly to actually feel this, but you don't have to take a deep breath. But when the belly rises with the inhale, your lungs have filled with good air, which tells your body safe. So you don't have to believe it. You don't have to think it. But just by doing the soft belly breathing, you get to see right here the change happens. Then here in this second, in this B, this is called alpha brainwave frequency. We dream in alpha. It's a creative state. I would say it's a healing kind of physiological state. Um, and then here in C, I showed this to a Duke neurologist, who looks at these every day because, me looking at it, I never looked at it before. And he pointed at C and said, this person is deeply, deeply asleep. They've been sleeping 90 minutes, a full sleep cycle. They say sleep cycles are 90 minutes. Here in this C, deeply, deeply asleep. Well, I wasn't. I was meditating, I was doing this mantra practice, but my mind and body was getting some of the same benefits as if I had slept 90 minutes, and this whole session took 15 minutes. So, just a little science there. 3 steps to the mantra meditation. The first step I've identified, soft belly breathing. Again, belly rises, belly falls, relaxation response, physiological relaxation response can begin. 2, body well supported. I'll demonstrate for you. In the hospital, every day I could see people like this. When are they coming in here? What's that test going to show? When am I getting out of this hospital? I hope those kids are doing okay. But then what is this going to do? It's going to give me a headache. It's going to keep me awake tonight. But instead, I've learned how to relax. Feel the support of the bed or chair. Let your body be heavy. Allow the bed or chair to hold you. So here I'll demonstrate. I feel the chair. I let the chair do the work. When I stand, I hold me. But as I'm doing this meditation or I'm wanting to relax, I let the chair, I let the floor support me, let the chair do the work. Everybody good with that? Great. Now, part 3. Silently to yourself, repeat a short positive word or phrase, the same word or words again and again. So when we got that grant, one of the reasons we got that grant is that TM charges people, let's say $1,400, and they give you a mantra. So you have your mantra now that you just paid $1,400 for, and now you're motivated. You're going to practice because you paid the $1,400. Well, do you need to pay $1,400? And the answer is no. You can choose your own mantra. So I've developed a spiritual assessment to help me working with patients. The spiritual assessment was, is religion or spirituality important to you? For some it is, and for some it isn't. How about you? And so asking that question 40,000 times, I get 4 answers. One answer is yes. Another, I don't go to church, but I believe in God. I'm not sure about God, but I think there's something spiritual or higher power. 4, no. And so I say go in the direction of the patient or yourself. If religion or spirituality is important, you choose a spiritual mantra. If it's not, it could be a simple positive phrase. Here, short positive phrase could be peace. I can do this. Easy does it. I am getting better. In this sense, we're talking about a cognitive skill, using the mind to help lower our stress. Now, if you're spiritual, a spiritual phrase. In the Ram Dass family, it could be, I am loving awareness. It could be Ram Ram Ram, or Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. Someone who were Buddhist might like a phrase Om Mani Padme Hum. Muslim, La ilaha illallah. Wiccan, blessed be. Do you see where I'm going with that? Not trying to change another person, but having them use something that they already relate to as their mantra. And I've studied the word mantra. What it means is something that protects the mind. So again, worry adds stress to my mind. Rumination adds stress to my mind. I'm going to protect it by the secret of the technique. When you notice your mind wander, kindly and gently let go of whatever the thought is, returning back to the mantra. So the research we did, people did this technique 15 minutes once a day. Within 2 weeks, they found a great decrease of stress in their lives. Now, I know many people are busy, but the idea of taking 15 minutes once a day for you to lower your stress, to take care of you, becomes very, very valuable. So during that 15 minutes, the worry comes up or the tomorrow comes up, letting it go, coming back to the mantra again and again and again. So in terms of the practice, you can do this basically in any tradition. It could be lying down. The problem with doing it lying down is what? It's easier to fall asleep. And you might need that, so that's fine. But in terms of getting, moving towards that, the EEG skill of quieting the mind, better to do it sitting up. So during the research study, people use the same phrase, the same mantra for 3 months. And I remember, back at the beginning in the mid 70s, Ram Dass would talk about, using a mantra for a year. And so, I've done that a few times, using a mantra for a year, but just beginning, it might be for 3 months. You're going to use the same phrase. And again, it doesn't have to be the most perfect, just a phrase, a mantra that you're comfortable with. So, again, for not spiritual, could be, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. Oh, this feels good. I'm starting to. I can do this. I can do this. So just anchoring in with that phrase, then it has a power that then can weave into the whole rest of our lives. So just a little. I love these two pictures that show our research. People just doing the mantra. Those who did it 15 minutes once a day. These are 4 different stress scales: the PALMS, Profile of Mood States, Perceived Stress Scale, the Spielberger State, and the Brief Symptom Inventory. So even for physical problems, seeing great decrease within 2 weeks after the class ended, and then held for 3 months. And then people who did the practice twice a day had a greater decrease of stress, greater improvement than the ones that did it once a day. But it was totally statistically significant with just the once a day practice. So this we got a paper published in a journal, and that's the information there on that. So during the practice, when you notice your mind wander, you let go and come back. Right there, you have learned a skill. You've learned how to let go of thoughts. How to let go of thoughts. Come back to the mantra. And so that by this kind of practice, especially over time, you're building a stronger and stronger muscle to let go of thoughts. So, to build a daily practice, a couple tips for that. One could be doing it at the same time every day. Then tomorrow you don't have to figure out when you're going to do it, you just do it at the same time. Another idea is associating the practice with a behavior. So for me, at the time, like I did it when I got home from work. Well, one day might be 5:30 coming home from work, but another day might be 7 o'clock coming home from work. Or it might be, when the kids are taking a nap in the afternoon, or before my lunch, or just a behavior then reminds you. You connect the practice with that. Oh, how to choose a phrase. Let's say today you want to work with "I can do this." Tomorrow you want to try "God is with me." I'd say, fine. In the middle, tomorrow, don't switch back to "I can do this." Stay with "God is with me" the whole time. The next day you want to try "Easy does it." I'd say, fine. Don't switch back to "God is with me." Stay with "Easy does it." So I would say, with today being Saturday, how about by Monday, settle on one phrase that you could use for the 3 months? So, spirituality, very positive ways of working with stress and uncertainty. I've developed this kind of model based on Evelyn Underhill. She was a writer in the early 1900s. She talked about 3 ways that people grow spiritually. One is through religion, and that makes sense. Different religions have spiritual practices and that can help people deepen their religious faith. But another way she identified was beauty, another, pain or difficult life experiences. I've added a couple more to this. One is service can be a form of spirituality, especially with non-attachment to the results of our service. Science, I'm going to say with a capital T, is a search for truth. And science, I think a real important part of science is if you don't have the answer, you don't have to form an opinion. You just don't have an answer. We don't have that answer right now. I'm certified in healing touch, and that can be like an energy work around a person. And I had this cardiothoracic surgeon once, write the patient requested it, but he wrote a consult for me to come and do healing touch with the person. And, which, in the 1990s, this kind of stuff was weird. And for some people, it still is. And so I saw the doctor later on in the hallway and I said, "Dr. Crawford, why did you say it was okay for me to do that? I'm just wondering about your thinking." And he said to me, "If 200 years ago you said, you'll be able to cut out someone's lung and they'll be able to live, I would have said you were crazy." And he goes, "Well, maybe in 200 years we're going to find out more about that." So, just that sense that the search for truth, science is. So with religious and spiritual practices, I list here some parts of it that can really be healing, nurturing, helping to move towards that homeostasis. Different religions, yes, but a lot of these topics are kind of common ground. It's important not to push, I feel, religion onto people. Some people, they've been abused by religion in the past, and there's actually science hasn't proved God, so you got a scientist, and they might not want anything to do with religion. So It's just be careful with it. I was told that, at Duke Hospital there was this lady in X-ray waiting for her X-ray, and this housekeeper came up, patted her on the shoulder, and said, "Don't worry, honey, I'm going to pray for you." And she put a formal written complaint into hospital administration that the housekeeper was pushing religion on her. So, just there is that kind of carefulness. It's a sensitive subject. So, religion is one path. Another path for spirituality is beauty. And I include here nature, art, music, poetry, creative expression. Also, painful life experiences can help a person gain spiritually. Um, at one point, I did this Revitalizing the Caregiver workshop, and they had us write down every loss that we had in our lives by our ages, from 0 to 5, 5 to 7, 10 to 20, 20 to 30. And, it might be, she was very liberal with the word, loss. It could be the loss of a pet. Graduating from high school was a loss of a role. And so the next day, they had us get out that list and ask us to write a gain that happened from each of these losses. And it was incredible. Every single loss, there had been a gain that came out from it. In our, it was a room full of, 20 nurses. So that sense that we all were able to do that has given me a kind of a hope or a meaning that from difficult life experiences, it is possible for something good to come through them. Sometimes time is needed, time. But so that loss and gain, spirituality, AA, and other 12-step groups are examples of people like hitting bottom, but then reaching out. Kubler-Ross and her models of death and dying, the idea of going through stages and meeting and then coming to an acceptance. It's important though with that acceptance. Sometimes there's a resignation, which is a defeated. That's not what I'm talking about. An acceptance is an opening up and an embracing of life as it is now.